Great. Very good. Welcome everyone for the third of our Get Ready for Exams workshops. And today we're looking at how to manage your gradebook in Moodle. Now, the Moodle Gradebook is sort of a metaphor for Moodle as a whole. The best thing about the gradebook is also the worst thing about the gradebook, in the same way that the best thing about Moodle is, for me or for many, the worst thing about Moodle. The Moodle Gradebook seeks to be everything to everybody. And that's great because it allows you to do all of these different things that we want to do when we're setting up grades for our students. But because it's doing everything for everybody, there are so many different options that it becomes quite confusing and difficult to manage. And it really can be quite a steep learning curve in order to master setting up the grades. In fact, every semester I learned something new about the Moodle Gradebook, no joke. And I've been doing this now for, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years. But the good thing is that because of this, Moodle can really address the needs of as many people as you can come up with different ideas of how you want to manage your grades. Great. So the first thing is, how do you access your gradebook? And I know that many of you will already be aware of this, but what I realized is that for many teachers, they come into the Moodle page, and particularly if the hamburger icon has closed that menu, they say, well, you know, where's my gradebook? So the first thing I want to do is to show you how you can access your gradebook and how you can navigate through your gradebook. The easiest way that I find is to use the hamburger icon to open up the left menu. And by the way, we call these three lines a hamburger icon, you know, because it's the bun on the top and the patty in the middle, whatever. But if you hear me talking about that, that's what I'm referring to. So we open up the left menu and you can access your gradebook from this grades choice right here. Note also, however, you can always access your gradebook from the your profile menu as well, just by selecting grades. Good. So now that I've opened up my gradebook, note that there are two lines of choices in your gradebook. The first is the view section, and by default, your gradebook will always open to the view that shows the grader report. So what's the grader report? Well, the grader report really is just Moodle's way of talking about a gradebook spreadsheet. In other words, down the left column, you have all of the student names and in fact, their email addresses. And across and each column here represents each of the different assignments in the course. So if I scroll across, I see all the different assignments, and at the very end, and this is just by default, the way that it's set up by default, you can actually change all of this. You'll have your course total. Good, so that's the grader report. And the grader report is the typical view, oh, I went back by accident, is a typical view that we think about when we're thinking about our gradebooks. Now, in that view menu, you're also able to see two other really useful views. One is the user report. And the really nice thing about the user report is because you can then see your gradebook the same way that a student would see it. So let's say that I wanted to see how Trinity's gradebook appears to her. All I do is I just select her name, and this is the view that she is going to be seeing when she accesses her gradebook. So this is exactly what it looks like when she goes into her into her gradebook. So that's one reason why the user report is so useful. But also the single view is really useful because it allows you to see a specific grade item if you want to check. Some people are saying this particular grade is not calculated correctly or whatever the case might be, or if you want to manually change the grade of any particular assignment, you can see using the single view. I find that I don't use, well, I certainly don't use outcomes report at all because this is only used if you're using if your course is built around competency outcomes as opposed to grades. So I don't use that at all. But you could also see grade history. And then this will tell you, I think, all of your grades from all of your courses. Sorry, all of the grades of a student in your courses. Overview report, again, I don't really use it that often, but this just gives you grades from all of the the average grade from all of the courses that you are enrolled in. Now it's giving me a 0 in this grade, which makes sense because I'm actually the teacher in that class. So yeah, that's why I would be getting that grade there. So as I said, I typically don't use these three. Usually I just look at the grader report, single view, or the user report. Note also that once you're comfortable with navigating between the view, then you could go on to look at some of the other things. I'm going to skip straight to letters just to show you that you don't have to worry about the letter grades that are appearing in Moodle. They have already been calibrated to the UB grade scale system. So if you want your grades to show as letter grades, the letter grades that are embedded within Moodle automatically will show the correct grades that appear in Moodle. I would recommend that you don't worry about scales unless you are teaching a not for credit course and all of the assignments that you are given use scales. The reason why is because whenever you combine scales or even letter grades with numerical grades, the averages tend to be thrown on. So I would recommend that if you're going to use scales, only use it in courses that have scales exclusively. So the last thing I want to talk about is this view, and that is setup. This is where we determine how we set up all of our grades in Moodle and how we weight things and how we drop grades and all of those sorts of things. So I'm going to go into a little more depth in that in 1 second. But before we go on, I just want to ask if anyone is comfortable with how you access the grader report, the single view, and the user report. Note also when you're in the grader report, as you scroll over, the students' names are anchored, so you can always see which students got which grades. So that's the grader report view. One of the nice things about Moodle is that as soon as you add any kind of task, any kind of graded task to your Moodle course, that graded task is automatically added to your grader report or your gradebook. If you decide that task is going to be ungraded, it by default will also not appear in the gradebook. Now, the one thing is that people will often say, well, I have some assignments that I'm not actually asking the students to submit in Moodle. Like it might be a presentation assignment, for example, or when we were in face-to-face situations, students may have actually been submitting hard copies of an assignment. How do you set those up in your gradebook? Well, there are two ways that you can do that. One, you can um, set it up in as an assignment, and I'm going to show you this one as an example because I've set these reflections up so they are not actually submitted to Moodle. So if you look down at the assignment, if I go to my edit settings, down where I have submission types, I have deselected both of these boxes. This means that students will not be able to submit this particular assignment in Moodle. They have to go to somewhere else to submit the assignment, whether it be a different program or whether they pass you a hard copy or whatever the case might be. That means that even though this assignment appears in my Moodle course as a Moodle task, students are not actually turning this thing in through Moodle. And therefore, it's appearing in the gradebook because I've given it a grade and it's a task here in Moodle, but students are not actually passing it in Moodle. So if I go back to my gradebook, you'll see that reflection 1 is reflected if I scroll across in my let's see, where is it? Assignments. Yeah, there it is, week 1 reflection. So it's appearing in my gradebook. I've actually graded some of my students' reflections, and so the grades are appearing in here, but it's not actually appearing. Students are not actually submitting work for that assignment. So that's one way that you can add.
Did you put those in manually?
Did I put the grades in manually?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the other reason why I like to do it this way, because it will allow me to actually grade this assignment. I click on this assignment, it should take me there. It actually allows me to grade this assignment within Moodle. So I can, even though the submissions were not made through Moodle, I can go to my grading page and it will still allow me to use the various grading features like a rubric or whatever the case might be, and I can actually grade it within Moodle. The second method of adding items to your gradebook when they are not submitted through Moodle doesn't allow you to do this, and for those assignments, you actually have to manually override the grade in order to get the grade into the gradebook. So this is why I prefer to enter the grades as an assignment without an actual submission. Good. So, as I said, grades are typically automatically set up in your gradebook in Moodle. I will show you in a couple of minutes an alternative way if you don't want to go through the whole process of setting up an assignment, but having students not submit it. You just want to be able to make that placeholder in your gradebook and just fill the grades in by typing them in manually. We can do that as well. The thing that people have bigger questions about, however, is that typically for your course, you will have your assessment scales set up so different types of assignments or different types of tasks are weighted differently against one another. So this is an example of how we are weighting our assignments in one of our education courses, so that we have a I have a participation grade that I give them 20% for, quizzes 20%, assignments 40, and for the e-portfolio 20, and all of these together add up to 100%. Now the problem is that for each of these different categories, there are more than one task involved in each of these categories. So the question is, how do you set the gradebook up so that you can account for all of these categories? Well, I'm going to go to my training course, because in this course, if I go to my gradebook, I'll see that I don't have any of my assignments grouped. It's just a whole bunch of assignments and quizzes and other things, and they are just balanced against one another without any kind of grouping, let alone any kind of grouping according to the scales that we have set up. And I'm just going to move this. I'm just going to move this tab across so I don't get bumped out when I try to use it by. Yeah. So what we need to do then is set up our categories and balance them against one another appropriately. So in order to do that, the first thing you do is you go to setup. And when we're setting up, you'll notice that what it does is it shows all of my tasks just listed, all balanced against one another. And you'll notice that if I scroll down to the bottom, it's saying that it's giving me a course total of 100%. So it's just a mean of grades. And by default, the mean of grades in Moodle just balances each assignment against one another equally, no matter what the score they're given out of. If you want to balance them against the score that they're given out of, what you would just do is say, I want a natural aggregation of the grades. And what the natural aggregation would do is just add all the grades up and give you a total. Some people prefer that, as we were talking about earlier, but we'll get to that in a second. The problem is, what we want to do is differentiate the weightings between assignments, quizzes, the participation, and that would be the rating grade for do you have a question, yellow did, my in, and then my e-portfolio. So I want to set up those categories so that I can weight those things differently. In order to do that, scroll to the bottom of your gradebook setup, and then you can just go ahead and add a category. So I'm going to go ahead and add a category. And what are the categories that I need? I need participation. Good. So I'm going to just set up this as participation. For the time, let me show more. For the time being, I am going to set this to mean of grades with extra credits. You know what? I'm just going to set it to mean of grades. That's the simplest of them all. Now, someone had a question earlier about dropping the lowest grade. This is where you would drop the lowest grade. So let's say that in my participation category, I wanted to drop the lowest 1 grade. I would just change that 0 to a 1. Also, take careful note of this particular checkbox. By default, it is set to exclude empty grades. So if a student has not passed that assignment in, by default, that grade will not be counted toward their average. If that is not what you want, in other words, if you want by default, if a student does not pass the work in by the deadline, after that deadline, that grade converts to a 0, you are going to deselect that. And that will mean now that any students who have outstanding work, until they talk to you or whatever the case may be, or get that sorted out, that outstanding grade is being calculated as a 0. So that's what the exclude empty grades is about. Drop the lowest allows you to drop the lowest grade in that category. I strongly recommend that when you are using category totals. You keep this at value. And now maximum grade, this is where if you do want to use a points total, at least for the categories, you can manipulate it without adding any weights by saying, you know what, I know that my participation grade is going to be 20%. So I'm going to change the points total for this category to 20. And I'm not going to worry about any of these other things, weight adjusted, anything else. Let's see if there's anything else on here. I don't need any of these other items at all. Actually, this is a good point here. Grade display type refers to how this grade is going to be shown. Right now, it's showing us the real grade. You could select letter grade with a percentage, a letter grade by itself, all of these different ways of showing that grade. I typically will just leave it as the real grade. And so I'm going to save my changes. And if I go back to my grade book, I can see that that category has now been set up as participation. When I scroll down to the bottom, here's my participation grade here. And it doesn't have any tasks in it yet because I need to now, once I have that category, move the tasks into it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up all of my categories first, and then I'm going to put my items into my categories. So the next category that I want to add is quizzes and tests. So I'm going to go back, add category. Quizzes / tests. And again, I'm just going to put that as mean of grades. And again, I do not want to exclude empty grades. But this time, because I have like 10 or 15 quizzes, I'm going to let my students drop the lowest score. So I'm going to put drop the lowest 1 quiz grade, category total, value. Again, I'm going to change it to the percentage there. So I'm going to change that total to 20. And go ahead and save my changes. And I should now see my quiz category appearing down at the bottom. Yep, so I have my participation category, my quiz category. The next one that I want to set up is assignments / projects. So that would be 40%. I will add that category on. Same thing. Assignments / projects. And because I don't have so many of these, I'm not going to drop any of these. I leave that as 0. Again, mean of grades. I just all want them balanced equally. Category total. This time it's 40. And I am going to save the changes there. And you'll see that you know what, they need to pass all those assignments in. So that is the assignments. And then finally, I need to set up my ePortfolio category. So I'm going to go ahead, add that one in. And this typically you might have instead of ePortfolio final exam. And one of the nice things about putting this in a category, several courses have final exams that have multiple papers. This will allow you to do that as well. And I'll show you exactly how you can set that up. Category total 20. So that you don't have to worry about aggregating it manually. You can just score them as they're scored and then have Moodle aggregate them for you. And I'll go ahead and save all of my changes. Now I have all of my categories set up. Good to go. The next thing I want to do is to move all of my different tasks into the appropriate categories. So I want all of my assignments to go into my assignment category. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all of them. That one. I think I have a couple of more down here. Yep, these two projects, these two assignments. Good. So I am now going to move the selected items to my assignments category. And it should give me something, a message saying it's recalculating the grades. Oh, it just automatically did it. Good, and you can see now the assignments have disappeared because they've been moved down into the assignments category. Next, I want to move all my quizzes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start from here, go up. Up, up, up. Good. So I have all of my quizzes selected, and I'm going to move those into that appropriate category. So that would be my quizzes, and it automatically puts those into the quiz category. And now I have my participation grade. So that would be this one and this one. I'm going to move those into participation. Good. And finally, my ePortfolio, I'm going to put those into my ePortfolio category. Move to ePortfolio. Good. So now I have all of my tasks categorized appropriately. But the question is Moodle weighting my things properly? Well, the first thing that you always need to do is go to the overall category, which is your course name. You'll always see it up at the top. And if I go back to my actual course, you'll see that in this gradebook, at the very top, that top category is the name of the course. If I go back to my gradebook, I will want to be sure to edit this overall category to make sure that all the grades are being averaged appropriately. So right now it's being aggregated by mean of grades. I'm not sure that that's really what I want. Because the mean of grades, as I said, and I'm not going to exclude empty grades for this, the mean of grades is just going to average each column, each category equally against one another. So instead of that, what I want to do is I'm going to put a simple weighted mean of grades. And if I go ahead and save that, what that is going to do is note that no weights are appearing, but now what that is going to do is it's going to average each of my categories using the category totals to balance the different categories against one another. So now it will actually be working like a simple aggregation, just by saying this is 20, I'm going to weight that against 20 here, and then I'm going to weight that against 40 here, and I'm going to weight that against 20 here. So because I've used that simple weighted mean of grades, these categories now are going to be weighted appropriately against one another in order to calculate the overall grade. Is everyone clear between difference? Is everyone clear of the difference between just the mean of grades and the simple weighted mean of grades?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. The mean of grades just weights each grade by averaging out. I have 4 categories. It'll average out the 4 category grades and divide by 4. The simple weighted mean of grades averages out the grades according to the category totals that I have inputted as I built up the spreadsheet. And so if you go back into my course here, you'll see that I've used the simple weighted mean of grades in my settings. Oops, someone else is coming in. And if you go back to the course, you will see that I've used exact same weightings here, 20 for that category, 20 for this category, 40 for this category, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one of the really, really nice things about using a simple mean of grades, let's say that I don't really want this week 9 quiz to be weighted along with the rest of the quizzes. I actually want this week 9 quiz. It's a special review quiz that I did for the whole class. I want this to be added on as an extra credit assignment. And I want it to be added on as an extra credit assignment for the whole course because it's a review quiz for the entire course. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out of that category for quizzes because I don't want it to be balanced within that quiz. I want it to be extra credit for the entire course. So let me take this out of that. Let me take it out of that category and I'm going to put it back into the overall course again. Move selected items to the overall course again. And now that week 9 quiz is showing balanced against all of these other categories. Now, what's the point of that? Well, if I now go into my edit settings for that particular task, you'll notice that if I scroll to the bottom, it allows it to be calculated as an extra credit grade in that overall category. If I just click that and save changes, you'll notice now that this quiz is giving my students 10 extra credit points if they complete this assignment. In other words, this 10 plus means it's going to be added on to whatever their score is from the other categories. And hopefully no student has gotten higher than a 90 because if they have, then their scores, well, it won't actually be reflected over 100. It will just be reflected back up to 100 because it's being calculated as an extra credit. So right now, this week 9 quiz is being calculated as an extra credit assignment for the overall course grade, and it's giving my students 10 extra credit points to the overall course grade. Everyone follow that? Do you need for me to go through that again to see how you can have an extra credit assignment for that course?
Yeah, could go over that.
Yes.
Go over it again? Okay, good. So let me change this back to what it was before. Save changes. And I'm going to move this back into where is it? Week 9 quizzes. Let me move back into my quizzes. Okay, good. That's another quick way to move assignments do just by clicking on the arrow and then just click where you want to move it. So right now, this week 9 quiz is being calculated as, well, you know what? Let me ask you, how do you use your extra credits?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, for extra credits, sometimes, well, I give extra quizzes, but you would not, all of the students don't take the quiz all of
Yeah,
the time. So
exactly.
everybody would not get the extra credit.
Yeah, perfect. That's
Mhm.
exactly the type of example that I'm thinking of. And let me ask you this. Do they only get that extra credit applied to their quiz grade, or does that extra credit apply to the overall course?
Um,
Or it
it can
depends?
be, it depends. It can be either
Yeah,
or. Yeah,
okay,
but
sure.
for the
So let,
quiz grade, um,
what I'll do is I'll show you how to do both. So let's say that these, I want these week 12 and week 13 quizzes. I want them to be extra credit grades for my week 12, for my quiz overall grade. So the first thing that I need to be sure of is that, well, I think I can actually even do it when it's just weighted mean of grades. So all I do is I go into week 12 quiz and I click on edit settings. Oh no, I have to change the parent category. Good. So the first thing that you have to note is that extra credits can only be assigned in categories that have as their aggregation type either mean of grades with extra credit or the simple weighted mean of grades. So if I just wanted to have my grades where they're just being averaged against one another and have extra credits as well, I'll have to change this instead of mean of grades to mean of grades with extra credits. And I'm going to just use this because all of my quizzes are worth 10 anyway. So I don't have to worry about weighting quizzes one against the other. I'm just going to give it a mean of grades with extra credit, save that. And now in my quiz category, I should be able to give this assignment, that week 12 quiz, as an extra credit. And how many points do you usually let it be the full 10 points?
no, 5.
5. All right, so I'm going to give it 5. Oops. 5 for that one. Save. And edit settings. Now note, this looks, it's going to look off-putting when you're using the mean of grades. This 0 means that these things are just going to be balanced equally against one another. And these two are going to allow students to get 5 extra points for the extra credit, for the extra credit quizzes that I'm adding on. Even though this quiz is out of 10, it's not gonna score it as 10 points. It's just gonna score it as 5 points because I put that 5 weighting over here in this category. So that's if you're gonna use this as a use it using the mean of grades with extra credit. Alternatively, we could have, and I actually prefer this way, we could have used this category instead of mean of grades with extra credit as weighted mean of grades, and that will automatically allow me to assign extra credit to those two things. So if I go back here, now it's telling me that each of these things are being weighted against one another 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And now I have to reassign these two as being, did I give it the correct? I don't think I gave it the correct thing. Sorry. It should be simple weighted mean of grades. Simple weighted mean of grades is what I want. Yes. And now it should just say that they are being weighted against one another as 10. And now I can just edit these settings and change that to extra credit. Now, one of the downsides of just doing it this way is that I have to, when I'm setting up that quiz, ensure that the maximum grade is equal to the amount of extra credit points I want to add on. Since I have this as a 10-point quiz, when I use the extra credit the way that I just did, the full 10 points are being added on. So I added this on again as extra credit. And so both of those quizzes are being given as extra credit. The important thing is what this means is that a student could still get full marks for this category, even if they did not complete these two extra credit assignments. If they got 10 out of 10 for all of these other quizzes, they would still get the full 20 points that are awarded for the quiz category, even though they didn't take the extra credit. In other words, the extra credit can only add to a student grade. It cannot subtract from a student grade, which is what I think that people typically use the extra credit for. So that's if you wanted to add that extra credit in within that category. But supposing I wanted an additional extra credit to be given to the overall course. So let's say that I wanted this assignment here to be an extra credit for the course as a whole. So first thing I'm going to need to do is take it out of my assignments and projects category, and I'm going to put it back into the course as a whole. So it's going to move that. And I want it back in the course as a whole. So I'm going to put it up here. And so now I want to add this as an extra credit for the entire course. In other words, when students have calculated their overall grade from all the overall categories, this then will add to that total score for the course. So I'm going to go in, and I've already set this category to simple weighted, so I don't have to worry about that. I can go in and click edit settings here. And then now I can add this as an extra credit and save changes. And what this will mean now is that if the students complete this assignment, they have the potential for 5 additional points added on to their total grade for the course. Okay, everyone follow how to add extra credit assignments?
Yes.
The main point to remember is that whenever you're adding extra credit assignments, is that for whatever category you're dealing with, that category has to be balanced, or has to be listed as either mean of grades with extra credit or simple weighted mean of grades. One of those two, and it will allow you to add extra credits to that category. Good. Now, the other thing that faculty members often like to do is that sometimes a simple weighted mean of grade or the simple mean of grades will not appropriately balance the tasks in a given category. So for example, in this participation grade, I have this forum that's being rated at 10, and this other participation that is being rated as 100. So I don't want them balanced equally. I do want this yellow dig to be weighted more because students have to do it every week. But I don't want it to be weighted 10 times more as it is being reflected by just the maximum grade showing up for each of those different assignments. So what can I do? This is where weighted means of grades come in. So I'm going to go in and edit settings for that participation. And instead of mean of grades, which balances whatever assignments equally, or simple weighted mean of grades, which balances assignments according to their total score, I'm now going to use a weighted mean of grades. What this now will allow me to do is, aside from the total score, I can actually add a weight to each of these different assignments. And what this means right now is that by default, when you put that in, those weights are set to 1-to-1, meaning that each of these categories are balanced one against the other. I don't want that particular weighting. I want the yellow tig to be twice as important as the rating grade. So I'm going to change this from a 2 to a 1. Note that whenever you're dealing with weights, the absolute value of the weights does not matter. Instead of putting 2 to 1, I could have put 20 to 10. And the weighting would still be exactly the same. Or I could even have put 40 to 20, to 20. And still, because the comparative weights are still in a ratio of 2 to 1, the weighting is still the same as if I had just put 2 in that one and 1 in this one. Okay. And so now I've weighted this yellow dig to be worth twice as many overall participation points as the rating grade. Note that whenever you add weights to your grade book, the thing that you need to do when you're finished adding those weights is click Save Changes. And when you do that, you should get a message. If you have grades in your grade book, it will tell you recalculating grades. And now let's review overall what I've done with my gradebook. Well, the first thing I said, I'm going to have this extra credit assignment for those real keen go-getters so that they can get 5 additional points even after I've calculated their overall grade. However, for those students who are really busy, they're taking 6 courses, they have the time to do this extra, it won't hurt them if they don't do that extra credit. So that's the first thing I have there. The second thing is I have cataloged all of my different tasks into different categories because I'm balancing the categories against one another according to the percentages in my course outline, 20-20, 40-20. And I've done that by making this overall category a simple weighted aggregation, so that each category is going to be aggregated by the total points for that particular category. So I have 20, 20, 40, and 20 for my overall of 100. And then I dropped all of my assignments into my particular categories. The next thing that I did is I said, you know what, I want my week 12 quiz and my week 13 quiz to be extra credit quizzes in that quiz category. And so I set this category up as a simple weighted mean of grades category. And I edited the settings for these 2 tasks to make them extra credit as well. Note that if you look at the bottom of each of these categories, it tells you the aggregation method. So for this one, it's a weighted mean of grades. Yeah, that makes sense because I can see the weights right there. And I've been told to include empty grades. In other words, if a student does not have a grade for any of these particular tasks, that will be included as a 0 for the category aggregation. Similarly, down in this one, I've had this category as a simple weighted mean of grades. I'm also dropping the one lowest value. So the student who scores weakest on the quiz, that grade will be automatically dropped. And again, I'm including empty grades. So if a student misses one quiz, they're okay because that will be that would be 0 for that one quiz that they missed. I'm dropping it anyway, so it won't calculate against their overall grade. But if they miss 2 quizzes, even though the lowest, that first 0 is going to get dropped, the second 0 will be included in the calculation. And then for this assignments projects, this is just a mean of grades because I do want each of these assignments or projects balanced equally against one another. And so even though this assignment here is just worth 5, it's still going to be balanced equally against each of the assignments from weeks 1 through 13. And all of my assignments and projects are going to be contributing 40% to my overall grade. And then finally, for my e-portfolio, I have this 10 and 100. And now that doesn't look right because my e-portfolio part 1 shouldn't only be worth 10 compared. Oh, no, sorry. It's a mean of grades. So they are going to be balanced equally. That's fine. That's how I want it set up. And so I have my gradebook set up how I want it. Good to go. It's going to be calculated and the students will be able to see see each of their grades as they go along. Good. Any questions? I know that we've hit 11 o'clock, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if people are willing to stay beyond the 11 o'clock hour.
Yes, good morning. I have one question. I noticed when you were setting up the grade book and moving to selected items, and
Yes.
choose, you didn't save changes.
No, yeah, that's an excellent observation. Note that when you're moving things, either by using the double arrow or by selecting, you don't save changes. Once you click here and then go ahead and choose, it's going to automatically move the stuff without you clicking saving changes. Save changes really is only for when you're entering weights. Or if I were to, if you're entering weights, that's really the main thing that you need to worry about saving changes for.
Okay. Is there a contact that we can call if we run into problems when we're trying to
set up the grade book?
Yes.
You better call me. Or so just email me at edc. Where's my email now? Edward.Bethel, sorry.
But sometimes the email, you can't explain as if, if I'm in my grade thing doing something. Sometimes just a quick explanation.
So normally what I would do is if it's something that you need to show me, and I've done this actually with several faculty members, I'll say, okay, let's just jump on a quick Zoom call.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, and I give you screen sharing and I let you walk me through what you're doing and then try and point out how we can change it.
Okay, so your email is, okay?
Yeah, edward.bethel@ub.edu.bs. The reason why I say email to me as opposed to the help desk is that they are not as familiar with the setup of the grade book as you might need to assist you with what you're trying to do.
Okay.
Which department are you in?
Nursing.
I'm trying to think. You know what? If the other person you could always, but although he does as busy as I am anyway, I was going to say you could also reach out to Dr. Campbell because he is also very proficient with the grade book too.
I spoke to him yesterday, so.
Okay.
Good.
So either myself or him, we should be able to help you out with it.
Okay, thank you.
You're going to do a video on this?
Pardon?
You're going to do a video presentation this?
This was recorded, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No problem.
The recording will be sent out?
Yes, the recordings will be sent out in addition to some additional handouts that go along with it to show you how to do one or two of the tricks that I just mentioned. For example, dropping particular grades, extra credit, etc.
Okay, thank you. And do you also post it on your Facebook, on your YouTube channel?
I do post, yes, I do post the recording on my YouTube channel, but one of the problems is when I have when I'm doing the recordings of the Zoom sessions, I it's not posted publicly, it's posted unlisted. So when you go to the channel, you might not see it. That's why I send, basically what I do is that I just go to the registration list. So even if you didn't attend the meeting, but you had signed up for the meeting, I just mail the recordings out to all those people who are on the registration list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Bethel,
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at your weights and I have some quizzes and the different weights.
Yes.
Like I have some things that are 3%, some are 4%.
So in other words, you weighted the quizzes differently against one another. Is that it?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, good, good. So if you go back into my actual live class, this is my live class, you'll see that I've done exactly the same thing. I actually want my different quizzes weighted differently against one another because some of them are not as important as
Difficult, yes.
exactly. And so what I would do is I would give those additional weights for those other quizzes. Now, technically, I really didn't have to do that because I already made the weightings in the total points for that quiz. But I actually did it specifically for this tutorial so that you could see that even if this were out of 20, even this quiz were out of 20, but you felt, you know what, this really only worth half as much as this one here, you could just use the actual weighting to balance it less against the other quizzes. So yeah, you can absolutely do that as well.
Okay, so 3% could be a 3 or is that something different?
3% would be a 3. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah.
When you say, you mean
A 3
3
or,
in the,
yeah, for the weight.
so yeah, again, the weights really, the actual number of the weights is not important. Really what and the way that I do it is I find an anchor assignment. So this first assignment is my anchor assignment. And I say, I'm gonna let that be worth 1 point. And then basically whatever weights you put in are gonna be compared to that 1 point. So if I have this one, I want this to be worth twice as much. So I give that a 2.0 weighting. This one, I wanted it to be worth half as much, so I gave that as a 0.5. This one is a half more, so 1.5, like that. So the numbers themselves don't actually matter as much. Rather, more importantly, is that you balance them against an
The weight.
anchor point. Yeah.
The anchor weight.
Yeah, and notice the other thing too, because I use my same base course from semester to semester, and I just copy the content over. This semester, I didn't want to use this particular lesson, or I didn't want to use this particular quiz. What I could do then is just weight them at 0, and so those quizzes are automatically not gonna be calculated for my students, A, and B, they're not even, because I have it as a 0 weight, it's not going to show up in their student grade book either. So that's one of the advantages of using the weighted mean of grades. It allows you to kind of hide away particular assignments if you don't want to use them this particular go around, but I might want to use them next semester. So when I copy this course over to next semester, all I would need to do is just change that weight to 1, 2, whatever the case might be, and then it would be available for my students for next semester.
So do your weighted means add up to the total weight of the quizzes?
The weighted means.
So when we do it manually, we add them all up. They exactly
You could
go
do
to exactly the same thing.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. In fact,
Okay.
mine do. Yes, mine do. If you look at it, well, mine will actually
three.
add up to, I think they,
3, 4.
actually, no, they won't. Because I have this 1 out of 20.
Okay,
Yeah, and actually you
but I
could,
could do
yeah,
it.
you could, and that's
Okay.
an easy way to weight it as well.
Yeah,
Because then you know for sure that you're giving it the correct category, overall category
Yeah.
weight.
yeah, because these have specific quizzes and not just a lot of quizzes. They have specific quizzes throughout the
Yeah,
semester.
specific topics. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but and so you can see here that I frequently use when I bring, I didn't really want to do the assignment on OneDrive this semester, so I just hit it and put it at 0. So I use the weighting things to enable me to maintain those assignments. So if I copy my course again, I still have those assignments available, but I don't want to use them this semester.
Okay.
So good. Any other, and I think I should have an extra credit in here somewhere. Yeah, see, I have a extra credit quiz that was given as well. Any other questions?
All I can
Okay,
see is having the explanation really helps rather than just reading or trying to figure it out on your own. But this video really helps. Thanks.
trust me, it has taken me 10 years to get to this point. So I tried to do it by just doing it myself and reading. Oh my goodness, it's one of the hardest things to do. Yeah, good. So any other question? Was there anything else that people wanted to know that I didn't cover really quickly?
How does natural work with respect
Yeah.
to mean of grades?
Natural just basically calculates the grades by adding up the maximum grade for that particular category. So if I wanted, I'm going to change my that it doesn't really matter because it's already 20. No, you know what? Let me change this category. Let me do a different category that I have more assignments in it. So let's say for my, oh boy, I hope no, let me not do it in my class because I don't want to mess up my students' grades.
They'll mess you up.
Yeah, boy, they'll be on the phone as soon as they get out of class because they check. It seems like they check their grades every hour of the day. So let's say for this category here, assignments and projects, instead of average, or I think I have it as mean, I want it just as natural. Natural just means it's going to add up all of the totals for that particular for that particular category and make it out of the total. So now, since I put this as natural, the total for that category is going to be 100 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100 plus 100. So the total for that category is now 1,305. Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, basically it just adds it. And sometimes what people will do is set the totals for the categories and just put natural for the overall course total, because it should work out to the same as long as you're not using extra credit, as if you excuse me, as if you use a simple mean of grades.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And that gets back to your original question. That's one way sort of combining a natural aggregation for your overall course with categorizing your grades into categories and assigning a maximum grade for each category, then you can use a natural aggregation for the overall grade as well. Okay, everyone good?
Thank you.
Thank
No
you
problem.
very much.
Thank you
No
very
problem
much.
at all.
Can I
Yeah.
just ask a question, not related to the grade book, but related
Yes.
to setting up quiz, please, before you leave?
Yes. So what I'm gonna before
mhm.
you ask, what I'll do is I'm just gonna say thanks to everyone, and
Okay.
I'm gonna end the recording so that
Okay.